What if I told you there are ancient crops you can plant this time and still be harvesting in 2030, 2035, or even 20 years later? Crops that come back year after year, multiply themselves, require almost no care, and produce more food the longer they're in the ground. What if I told you that lazy gardening isn't about doing less work and getting less food? It's about doing less work and getting more food by choosing crops that take care of themselves. These crops exist. They're called perennials, and they're the ultimate lazy gardener gold mine. Our ancestors knew this secret. They planted vegetables, herbs, and fruits once and harvested for decades without replanting, without buying seeds every year, and without the endless cycle of tilling, planting, and starting over that exhausts modern gardeners. Today, I'm counting down 8 ancient crops that you plant once and eat for years. These aren't just any perennials. These are the absolute easiest, most productive, most foolproof crops that reward your laziness with abundance. Stick around because number 3 on this list produces more food per square foot than any annual vegetable, multiplies itself aggressively, and will feed you and your children for decades from one planting. And that bonus tip at the end is the ancient set and forget planting technique that makes these crops even lazier. 10 years ago, I was the world's most exhausted gardener. Every spring, I'd spend weeks preparing beds, planting seeds, transplanting seedlings. Every summer, I'd spend hours weeding, watering, and maintaining. Every fall, I'd harvest once and then do it all over again the next year. I was trapped on a gardening treadmill, constant work with no lasting progress. Then I visited a permaculture farm where the owner walked me through his food forest. "I planted most of this 15 years ago," he said casually, pulling a handful of berries from a bush. "Now I just walk through and harvest. The plants do everything themselves." I was stunned. That's when I realized I'd been taught gardening completely backwards. This video is about planting once and harvesting for years. Whether you're busy, lazy, tired of annual gardening, or just smart enough to want maximum food with minimum work, these 8 ancient crops are going to transform how you think about growing food. Before we dive into the countdown, hit that subscribe button right now and ring that notification bell. We share lazy gardening gold mines every single week, strategies that give you more food with less work. Your support helps us reach more people who want gardens that run themselves. Now let's jump in. Number 8, walking onions, the self-planting miracle. Starting at 8, we have walking onions, Egyptian onions, and these are truly the laziest crop you can grow because they literally plant themselves without any help from you. Why? They're a lazy gold mine. Walking onions don't produce flowers. They produce clusters of small bulbs at the top of their stalks. These top bulbs get heavy, bend the stalk down to the ground, and plant themselves. The plant walks across your garden year after year, planting and multiplying without you doing anything. What you get? Forever. Fresh green onion stalks like scallions year-round, underground bulbs like small onions, top bulbs for eating or planting, continuous multiplication without replanting, harvest whenever you want, whatever amount you want. The lazy strategy? Plant one bulb in spring. That's it, you're done. They walk, multiply, and spread. Harvest anytime you need onions. You'll have onions for the rest of your life without ever planting again. How long they last? Forever, literally immortal once established. The ancient wisdom? Walking onions were passed down through families for generations because they represent the ultimate lazy food. Plant once, eat forever, zero work. Number 7, asparagus, the 25-year investment. At 7, we have asparagus, and yes, it requires patience initially, but once established, you get 20 to 30 years of spring harvests with almost no work. Why? It's a lazy gold mine. Asparagus is the classic perennial vegetable. Plant crowns once, wait 2 to 3 years for establishment, then harvest every spring for 25 to 30 plus years with minimal care. It's an investment that pays dividends for decades. What you get? Forever. Fresh asparagus spears every spring. Harvest for 6 to 8 weeks. One of the earliest vegetables when nothing else is ready. High value crop, $5 to $8 per pound at stores. Production increases as plants mature. 20 to 30 plus years from one planting. The lazy strategy? Plant asparagus crowns properly in a permanent bed. Don't harvest years 1 to 2. Let plants establish. Starting year 3, harvest spears for 6 to 8 weeks every spring. That's your only work, an annual harvest. Feed with compost once a year, optional but extends life. Harvest for 25 to 30 years. How long it lasts? 25 to 30 years easily. possibly 40 years plus with good care. The ancient wisdom? Asparagus beds were planted once per homestead and provided spring delicacy for multiple generations without replanting. Number 6, rhubarb, the 50-year pie plant. Number 6 is rhubarb, and these massive perennial plants are truly plant once, harvest for life crops. Why? It's a lazy gold mine. Rhubarb is nearly indestructible once established. It survives freezing winters, hot summers, drought, neglect, and keeps producing thick stalks year after year for 20 to 50 plus years. Some Victorian-era rhubarb plants are still producing after 100 plus years. What you get? Forever. Tart stalks for pies, jams, desserts, and sauces. Harvest from spring through early summer. Beautiful, large ornamental leaves, inedible but dramatic. Zero care required after year 1, 20 to 50 plus years from one planting. The lazy strategy? Plant rhubarb crowns in spring in a permanent spot. They get huge, need space. Water regularly the first year. After that, ignore completely except for harvesting. Cut leaves and stems as needed for cooking. Harvest seeds in fall for celery-like seasoning. The plant comes back bigger every year for 20 to 30 plus years. How long it lasts? 20 to 30 years easily. Possibly 100 plus years with good care. The ancient wisdom? Every old homestead had rhubarb planted by someone's grandmother. It was still there decades later, still producing, outliving the people who planted it. Number 5, horseradish, the indestructible spice. At 5, we have horseradish, and this is perhaps the most indestructible plant you can grow, bordering on immortal. Why? It's a lazy gold mine. Horseradish spreads through underground roots and is virtually impossible to kill once planted. Harvest 90% of the roots and the remaining 10% regrow into a full crop. It survives drought, flood, freezing, neglect, and deliberate attempts to remove it. What you get? Forever. Fresh horseradish roots for making horseradish sauce, adding to roasts, condiments, continuous production year after year, spreads naturally, can become aggressive. Zero care required ever. Immortal once established. The lazy strategy? Plant one horseradish root in spring in a dedicated area. It will spread. Water occasionally the first few months. After that, ignore completely. Harvest roots each fall by digging up some of the patch. Any root fragments left regrow. You'll have horseradish for life, whether you want it or not. How long it lasts? Forever. Literally impossible to kill. More likely to outlive you than die. The ancient wisdom? Every farm had a horseradish patch planted by someone's decades ago. It was still spreading and producing long after everyone forgot who planted it. Number 4, strawberries, the self-multiplying berry. Number 4 is strawberries, and while each plant only produces for 3 to 5 years, they send out runners that create new plants, making the patch essentially immortal and self-renewing. Why? They're a lazy gold mine. Strawberries are technically perennial, but their real magic is self-propagation through runners. Mother plants send out long stems that root and become baby plants. One strawberry becomes 5, becomes 25, becomes hundreds over the years. The patch continuously renews itself. What you get? Forever. Fresh berries spring through fall, ever-bearing varieties. One of the most expensive fruits at stores, $5 to $8 per pound. Continuous multiplication without replanting. Ground cover that suppresses weeds, self-renewing patch that never dies. The lazy strategy? Plant strawberries in a dedicated bed. Let them send out runners that root and become new plants. The patch fills in naturally as old plants age out after 3 to 5 years. Young runner plants replace them. Harvest berries continuously. The patch maintains itself forever. How long it lasts? Individual plants 3 to 5 years, but the patch is immortal through runner replacement. The ancient wisdom? Old homesteads had strawberry patches that were decades old, constantly renewing themselves through runners while producing berries every year. Number 3, Jerusalem artichokes, sunchokes, and these are the crop I mentioned at the beginning. They produce more food per square foot than any annual vegetable and spread aggressively. Why? They're a lazy gold mine. Jerusalem artichokes are native North American tubers that spread through underground roots. They're so productive and aggressive that the problem isn't getting them to grow, it's containing them. Every harvest leaves root fragments that regrow. They're perennial, spreading, indestructible, and incredibly productive. What you get? 5 to 10 pounds of tubers per plant per year. Tasty, nutritious tubers, nutty flavor, great roasted, mashed, or raw. Beautiful, tall plants, 6 to 10 feet with sunflower blooms.
improves soil, tolerates and rehabilitates poor soil, spreads to create permanent food source. The lazy strategy? Plant one tuber in spring in a dedicated area where spreading is okay, or contain with barriers. Water occasionally the first year. After that, ignore completely except for harvesting. Harvest tubers each fall. It's impossible to harvest them all. Tiny fragments regrow. You'll have continuous harvests forever with zero work. How long it lasts? Forever. Once established, you can't get rid of them even if you try. The ancient wisdom? Native Americans cultivated Jerusalem artichokes for centuries because they required zero work and produced